DIY is not for everyone. That's why we hire plumbers. In some cases, some things we can fix ourselves. But it comes down to what level of skill do you have and what level of skill are you willing to acquire for. Creating a brand is about the memory and the impression that lasts, right? And it's something that doesn't need to be optimized, and it's a long play, right? If you don't have good competition, that means the industry is really slow or old school and prime for disruption.
So on today's episode, we're going to talk about how to maximize the value of your e-commerce brand. It's SDE, which is the seller discretionary income. It's a great episode you do not want to miss, so do stay tuned. All right, so welcome to the 2X e-commerce podcast show. This is the podcast dedicated to digital commerce insights for retail and e-commerce teams. So each week on this podcast, we interview a commerce expert, a founder at a digital native consumer brand, a representative from a best-in-class commerce SaaS product with a tight remit to give you ideas you can test right on your brand so that you can improve commerce growth metrics such as conversions, average order value, repeat customers, and ultimately your gross merchant value or sales. We're here to help you sell more to your customers. So on today's episode, you're about to listen to is an interview I had with Josh Dittrich, who's based in Minnesota. He's an entrepreneur. This is a more Amazon entrepreneur, but there are many, many takeaways you could take from a direct-to-consumer business because he talks about real operational growth efficiencies. Obviously, outside of the marketing arena, because not much marketing is done in Amazon besides paying for ads and driving traffic to product pages. The key conversation he has is how do you prep up a business for a potential sale within a short-term horizon? So we're talking about 12 months or 18 months where you put out a plan from an operational standpoint and from a marketing standpoint to actually grow a brand within the Amazon ecosystem. But some of the takeaways here, as I said, can apply to D2C operators. Super interesting. He has a phenomenal story whereby he was working for an e-commerce business that grew from 3 to 50 million in revenue. And then he decided to go on it by himself. And he was able to essentially exit one D2C business. That was a small exit. And then the bigger exit, which was an 8-figure exit, was his Amazon business. And while he's in an earn-out position for this Amazon business, he's realized that there is a gap in the market to actually optimize SDE for Amazon brands looking to sell within an 18-month or a 24-month horizon, because he's on a 24-month with a brand he exited. It's a phenomenal story, very, very interesting. He is full of technical, operational know-how in operating e-commerce businesses, and particularly marketplace businesses, essentially, given the fact that the market is crazy at the moment with aggregators, trying to consolidate and roll up brands. He's speaking directly to, entrepreneurs out there, operators out there looking to maximize this potential opportunity while it's here to stay. Terrific episode. I'd like to know your thoughts on it, and you're just going to enjoy it essentially. So thank you, and I shall catch you on the other side. Incredible to have you on here, Josh. Welcome to the 2X e-commerce podcast.
Hey, Kunle, how are you? I'm glad to be here.
I'm doing pretty well. We have had a very chunky, interesting conversation about what you do, but I would like to hear it from the horse's mouth, Josh. So could you take a minute or even two to introduce yourself as well as branded seller?
Sure. Awesome. Yeah. Josh Dittrich, grew up in the small town of Iowa, been in Minnesota now for roughly 20 years, and grew up building someone else's business, decided it was a matter of when I left, and I was on the hunt for what was I going to do entrepreneurially. After some dabbling and some fails, I decided to join an organization that was just doing 3 million in sales, and I helped them grow from 3 million to 50. So as I was practicing entrepreneurship, I was doing it on the payroll of another group where I learned all things e-commerce, product development, marketing, sales, and just fell in love with e-commerce. And it gave me enough courage to build my own brand on the side. And once I replaced my income by 2 or 3 times, I decided it was time to leave the corporate job and double down on new product development and private label. So I was an Amazon seller with my own brand for roughly 5 years until we had an 8-figure exit, recently in March. We sold a second brand that we owned in April. And so now I've transitioned to kind of taking the DIY approach of building a brand myself, but also then from starting the brand all the way to exiting. It was just something I had to do, something I wanted to do, and learned a lot along the way. And so I got recently featured in a Business Insider article about the process of selling my business to an aggregator. I wrote about it now in my book, Aggregator Navigator, and now I'm helping other brands maximize their exit with brandedseller.com.
Incredible. Aggregator Navigator, very, very catchy. Love it. We'll link to it in the show notes.
Thank you.
There's a lot to unpick from what you said, and also inspiring, really. And if we look at the outcome, the 8-figure exit for one of the brands, I believe the second brand was a D2C and the first brand was an Amazon brand. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So just looking, if we track back, in terms of just your journey, it's just been phenomenal, from working, for the man and then getting a side hustle and eventually from that side hustle actually building something substantial that replaced your income that you exited is phenomenal. So just have to acknowledge that. So just for guests to understand what you do now. So you exited your businesses. Who if you don't mind, how did you sell them? Did you go through a broker or did you, sell off to an aggregator or, directly to an acquisition company?
Yeah, it's a fair question. So last fall, our D2C brand wasn't large enough to really attract an aggregator. The concentration on Amazon was maybe 30% or less. Majority of the revenue came from Shopify, but it also had some B2B. It had brick and mortar retail, and it was a hockey business. It was unique. And so I attempted to sell that myself to a strategic. And after a month or 60 days of very little interest, I had a lot of great conversations, but no one to follow through with it. I decided to use a broker with that business. So I used a broker for the D2C business. After marketing that business, I realized, man, I have an Amazon brand that could be really valuable to these aggregators I keep hearing about. Like, they're not a good fit for my D2C brand, but I have another brand. It just seems like maybe it's worth looking at. So I used a broker for the D2C, but for the Amazon brand, I led a process myself. I actually didn't use a broker at all. And that's kind of what led me through this whole journey of unpacking the selling process and what are the do's and the don'ts and how do you maximize the value and all these things to write the book Aggregator Navigator. So no broker, but I ran a process, meaning I had an outreach strategy. I had a set of processes and MNDAs and financials and a package that I prepared. Had a lot of DIY questions that were really applicable to the operators that I was working with as aggregators to really unpack them. And so, we exited that business in March without a broker. So I saved roughly $800,000. Now, I do love brokers. Do not confuse that brokers have value. Most brokers have value for finding you the right buyer or finding you the right seller. Depends on which side of the table you're on. That's number one. Number two, if you've never been in the space, transactions can be complicated, right? And so having a guy in your corner is the key. A guy who's navigated, pretty much any deal and seen the terms and the strategies deployed to acquire a brand. So first, DIY is not for everyone. That's why we hire plumbers. In some cases, some things we can fix ourselves. But it comes down to what level of skill do you have and what level of skill are you willing to acquire for? And so that's kind of my method. Whatever case makes sense for your model, for you and yourself as an individual.
So obviously, when you did it yourself, with outreach and the like, how long did it take in comparison to your first experience, which is through a broker? Because in context, if you with Aggregator Navigator, if you're given a blueprint, obviously you're caught in the time cycle, the learning cycle for potential entrepreneurs who want to sell. But for you, how long did that process take originally?
The funny part is we started the process with a broker in October. November went by, and then December. I had already built a 60-page PowerPoint. The broker didn't even use it. They rebuilt their own. So we lost like 45 days, 50 days there. Then it got listed, and then we had conversations. So we started having conversations like middle of December. That's when the light bulb turned on to start marketing the other brand. So from the end of December till January 14th, basically 20 some days, that's when I did all of my outreach, 30 days. I went from, having this brand, we also were prepared to sell. That's one thing we can talk about separately. We knew it was a matter of when, not if. We didn't need to sell, but we said with the market being as hot as it was, it's time to explore this. And if we get the right offer, let's do it. So for context, January 14th-ish, we were done. We chose the right group third week in January, and then we spent about 5 weeks in due diligence. And so I think we ended up closing, though, we waited an extra month, actually, so we could have February financials on there. But bottom line is the brand that I started after on my own closed before the one that we used with a broker. And we won't talk about any of the details that were ugly quite yet.
Super interesting. And then what sort of multiples did you sell the second business for?
So, it's all over the board, right? And it depends on how you look at it. So for us, first thing was our net income minus our plus our add backs got us to an SDE of 1.63 million was our trailing 12-month SDE. And the cool part was, many brands come together with this number, this SDE number, which is your discretionary earnings, right? It's a number that's pretty much stated as much as you can make it, as big as you can make it, hoping that a buyer says, yep, I agree with that. So first of all, we had 6 offers, and 5 of them actually gave us dollar for dollar credit towards the SDE and the LOI. One of them included some working capital adjustments and a discount.
LOI meaning a letter of intent.
Letter of intent. Yep. So our offer letter reflected the SDE number that we stated, which was encouraging. They liked our books. They could tell that they were in order.
Okay.
Right. But from there, we had a cash at close of about 3.86. Now that's excluding inventory. So inventory was on top of that, plus AR on top of that. And then we had a 6-month, a 12-month, and a 24-month earnout. And so based on our current run rate and our growth with minor expectations of pushing the bar to the next level, we expect it to be about a 7 multiple as we wrap up our 24-month period. So we're coming up on 10 months right now. And the growth rate is actually doing better than we thought. So we're on track, which is exciting. Okay,
so so those are your stop points. So in 2 months' time, you're going to get your earn out there, and then another 12 months,
and then another 12 months. Yep.
Incredible. So now, the proposition for branded seller is essentially maximizing SDE for potential exits.
100%.
Is that your proposition? Okay, so. How do you tackle this? Do you tackle it from a marketing standpoint? Do you tackle it from an operational standpoint, which could be quite challenging, or because they're Amazon businesses? Yeah. So where are these lever points to trigger this sort of growth? That you promised.
That's the $1 million question, right? And I would say, what does it take to be a successful anything in business, right? You have a little left brain and a little bit of right brain, right? So you have a little marketing creativity tied to a lot of data and operational processes. So for us, the secret sauce is absolutely are these brands underperforming, right? So the first thing we're looking at is, can we move the needle in the market share, right? Market share is our number one. We want to obtain market share. So what I mean by that is every product that you sell has its own potential market. If you're a private label brand and you sell products in multiple categories, you're going to be a brand that has a product that competes with other sellers for the same keywords. That would be called a market. So for us, brands that have crappy listings and have a good product the world just needs to be told about them. And so how do you tell the world about them? You drive traffic to the page and you convert more customers, right? So from our point of view, it has to be first about the market and the product. Is it a good product, and is there marketing juice available to squeeze, right? And then second to that, we see the byproduct of what the opportunity looks like. Has this seller run out of inventory before? Why is that? Is it a supply chain thing, or is it a cash thing? And so we partner with many brands where we've actually came up with a really, really well-oiled machine using Google Docs. But lot of sellers do not want to get into the weeds of inventory planning. They're scared to write that next check. And for us, it's just like handling a customer service call, writing a $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 PO. You have to have a system and a process, reorder points. You need to have replenishment points based on supplier lead times, based on the forecasting of your sales model. How much inventory do you need to have at FBA? How much inventory do you need to have in your own warehouse? Are you doing kitting and assembly, right? So it can get quite complicated. And so when you bring both of those together, I believe we add the most value when you take an approach that says, where does the needle need to be moved? How can we move the needle? Is it cash? Is it sweat equity? And so between that, there's a recipe that says, yeah, there's a playbook here that we feel excited about working with this brand and taking it to the next level before we market it and sell it.
Super interesting. So do you make recommendations yourself, or do you put your money where your mouth is? So do you infuse capital into these businesses? What is the play? Obviously, the outcome is to maximize SDE, and what do you get in return? Do you work on a retainer, or do you do a profit share on exit, or how do you sort of create that defensibility for you and an income stream essentially?
Yeah, it comes down to, at the end of the day, what does the match really look like, and where are the levers that the brand we're working with, what do they have? So what are their constraints, right? So for example, if your constraint is cash, it would be hard to work as a contractor and grow your business when you don't have the cash to invest in inventory or paid search, right? And so in that example, it might be worth us taking an equity position and actually contributing and recapitalizing and do a new cap table, right? Because then we can take on the operation and run the business inside hours and leverage our cash and work it accordingly, as opposed to just borrowing money to someone and being a bank, right? So it comes down to really the give and the take. But typically, we're going to find most brands are willing to work with us either in two ways. One is simply helping them make an introduction to exit. So if your brand is prepared to sell, if you feel like it's in a good place, we simply make an introduction and work with you as a seller to see your brand get the largest exit possible. And we do that for free for brands, 100% free, because the relationships we have with the buyers that we work with, the aggregators that we work with, pay us to send them qualified leads. And why would they do that? Well, we're sending them leads that have had a great conversation, right? That have had an understanding from my end, and they trust the criteria and the ability to identify that they're willing to pay for those leads. So that's one option, right? So we do it for free, pro bono. And it's simple. It starts with a call and start understanding where you're at with your brand and where are you at in the sales cycle. The second option is simply, where is your brand right now in terms of its path to grow and see an exit? And in some cases, brands just need a good fresh coat of paint, and so we'll work with them pretty easily, cosmetically, to go through the process of updating listings, maybe work with them on their ad structure. And so that's just a simple retainer or a rev share model to put forth some effort on our end to see that the brand is going in the right direction.
Are these engagements 12 months long, or what's typical length of these engagements?
I would say it's a fair question. I think typically those relationships are going to be geared towards the goal of exiting. So that makes it a little open-ended, right? So like the last one we did, we wrote an 18-month plan and it auto-renewed. And if they wanted to stop paying us for the service, that was fine. We gave it a period of time, 12 or 18 months that they would pay us to do the work. And after that point, they could stop paying us, but we're still guaranteeing that we would get a payout from the deal, meaning we had two components of payout. One is our blood, sweat, and tears trade-off of retainer or a rev share. The other is the upside, is the juicy stuff, right? Is the stuff where if we can take a brand that's worth $1 million and grow it to $3 million, we'll take between 10 and 20% of that, depending on the other side, right? Depending on how much monthly service fees we're charging based on the work we need to do.
Okay, so you retrack it and that. Okay, makes sense. Okay.
Yep.
So if it was on the lower end of your service fee, then obviously on exit you take a
higher cut.
A low, higher. Okay, makes sense.
Yep.
Makes a ton of sense. So tips. We've talked about branded sellers. Let's give some free juice to listeners, right? And listeners in this podcast, I have to give a caveat. They tend to be more D2C e-commerce businesses, but some operators sell on marketplaces and direct to consumer. Question is, what in your opinion are the key lever points for growth? So you mentioned two. One is just understanding the market share and seeing, what you can do to close the gap. And the second you mentioned was like inventory planning, so just ensuring that they never run out of stock. On Amazon, particularly, this can be detrimental to your seller rankings eventually. For D2C, you could turn off and turn things off. But obviously, at the end of the day, your bottom line will be affected given the fact that you do not have products people want from you. So are those the only two lever points listeners should be considering, operators should consider to maximize their SDE and eventually their enterprise value? Do you have any tips?
Yeah, I mean, those are certainly huge ones. You have cash, right, and keeping inventory flowing, and that can disrupt your cash flow if you get inventory out of play. It also is the key lever to sales. So absolutely that, and also on the market share. But I would think any seller, any brand that's D2C, marketplace, whatever, needs to have the best foot forward. The standards have changed. The standards of a good PDP, a product detail page, have changed drastically. Like, let's think about it. Like, if your average conversion rate on an e-com site is 2%, 1.5 to 2.5, and your conversion rate on Amazon is 30 to 50%, both have room for growth. And it's fascinating to me. And so from our point of view, there is no one trick, silver bullet when it comes to PDPs. Like, we've seen time and time again that the bar is raised. Your competitors come out with a new label, a new logo, new images, new enhanced images. Maybe the titles and the content didn't change because it's been there and the juice has been working. But, I'm talking about videos and going through the gamut to improve conversions. And so the key piece here is conversions are like the dollar for dollar largest return, right? So if you can improve the conversion rate, it's a direct correlation to your P&L a lot of times, just by moving the needle, right? So you're going to reduce ad spend by improving your conversion rate. And so, using tools, it's been a while since I've been in the D2C space running. We used to use Optimizely back in the day of running good PDP testing, but Amazon has experiments now and allows for that. But at the end of the day, man, you're competing with small brands that have become national overnight when aggregators are gobbling them up, right? So that's a huge piece. But like, even that, like images, as silly as that can be, people want to be able to click through the listing and see the details. Show how the installation works, show the manual, right? Like, these are things that every seller can take action on to get intimate with the product, because the answers to the questions are what people are looking for, and that's why they're not buying. And if they're not finding the answers to the questions that they have about the product, your product page isn't doing enough justice explaining why yours is the better option out there.
Incredible. Great stuff. Josh, we can go on and on and on with this conversation. So let's kind of wrap things up a little bit. And I want to sort of wrap up with a question, around where your thoughts on it, because I'm having this conversation actually early this morning. I had a call this morning with an operator of they service Amazon brands essentially, and they help with optimization a bit, but they're a service, based company. So my question, and she had her opinion around the fact that the aggregators have changed the playing field. So incumbent brands on Amazon that could get away with, as you just alluded to, with not so great product, detail pages or product listing pages, having to up their game. They're also having to look at the data a lot more carefully. And for a service provider like themselves, they're not too happy about it because they've had it easy. basically they're saying it's much more difficult. I like your opinion because you're actually going against this grain by actually adding more value and ensuring that these brands are have the highest value possible, EV enterprise value possible. What are your thoughts on aggregators and how they're changing the game on Amazon, and what you think the outlook in 2022 and beyond will look like?
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to this marketing question, the marketing detail page. And that was one thing that I really saw in the beginning as we went through the process with our aggregator, that they had a massive desire to bring a world-class brand image to the table. And I wasn't just talking about our brand, but even as far as the aggregator's brand, like who they are, what they stand for, like bringing true brand creation comes from not just showing up in a search results page. It's creating a brand is about the memory and the impression that lasts, right? And it's something
Absolutely.
that doesn't need to be optimized, and it's a long play, right? And so I do believe aggregators have the interest in creating new epic brands. And how do you know this? Well, they're seeing success bringing products that started on Amazon to D2C into brick and mortar retail stores and having wild success, right? And aggregators aren't the first to do that. We have a little company called Anchor, right, that has been phenomenal doing that as an Amazon brand first, but then available in Walmart. And so I think that's for all of us. Like, competition makes us better. Like, if you don't have good competition, that means the industry is really slow or old school and prime for disruption, right? And so we're actually coming into an era. Aggregators are probably the first level of disruption on Amazon. Like, if you think about it, the Wild West wasn't that long ago, where listings, you just had to have a few bullet points and a couple images, and all you were trying to do was fight for the buy box, right? And now it's, Targets and the Walmarts of the world have set that standard. You can buy high quality premium product that's not a national brand, save money, and have great value. So that's a model we've employed a long time ago. I believe that is the new standard. And that new standard is, a brand that's differentiated, a brand that gives back, a brand that has a mission that's greater than just making a widget, right? And so all of those things are expensive. And when you have capital behind you, you can invest in those things more than you ever could before. So you're up against that, right? Which means the budget to create a great product might be 2 or 3 times your budget. But guess what? The little guy can actually outwit and outsmart large systems if the groups that are out there running these aggregators aren't also evolving. Meaning, so I see what's happening right now is a big rush for ERPs, enterprise resource planning, inventory management, order management systems. I've spoken to numerous aggregators about this. Many of them don't have an operational backend. They're just starting to think about that, right? And so you're going to see brands that just operate seller central, right, with no other tools or tech, to now running massive ERPs with lots of data points, data warehouses, 3PLs, APIs, data flying everywhere. That is only as good as the plan to use that information and execute with it, right? And so, so my point in saying that is twofold. One is the tables are turning. Like, it's going to become a massive set of powerhouses that you're up against. On the flip side, if you stay sniper rifle approach on picking your products and making the best product and making the best experience for the customer, you can do it one product at a time, and you can do it and outbeat companies that have hundreds of employees with thousands of products to manage.
It's about focus and niching down, really, just really, really getting that precision, building up, and then moving to the next step, essentially.
Yep.
Josh, we could go on and on and on. You're an impressive mind. You're in this space. For those of us two ex-listeners who want to find out more about what you do, essentially what you do is maximize SDE for an exit, or for Amazon. what's the best way to reach out to you guys? Do you mind sharing?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. I'm a real human. I have a family of 5. I love Jesus. There's a lot of things about me that I can relate to, and I just love meeting people. So find me on LinkedIn for one. For two, brandedseller.com. There's a sell your business page at the top, but I think there'll be a link on this show.
I will link to yeah, absolutely.
I'm giving away my free book, so it'd be great to start there. And honestly, I just want to give back. Like this process, I spent a ton of money on this whole process, this book, this opportunity cost, but I wanted to take this guy that came out of the middle of nowhere in a small town in Iowa, came to Minnesota, built a business, and had a life-changing event, right? I choose to work now. I don't have to work. And the work that I'm choosing to do helps other brands see an exit, right? So I believe that small business operations, individual entrepreneurs, solopreneurs can make a splash and a difference in this world, and I believe that we can help them, and that's what I'm all about. So brandedseller.com and find me on LinkedIn, Josh Dittrich.
Brandseller.com, we'll link to it in the show notes. Josh, amazing having you here, and thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, Kunle. Have a good one.